Okay.
This is like such.
Kara, am I continuing? I'm going to continue.
I think that was not for us.
It was not directed at me. Yeah.
I'm muted.
Thank you. A rebuttal is an opening argument or a contradiction to what an opposing candidate had said. If you, as I said, if you wish to make a rebuttal, signal us by raising your hand. If I don't see you, yell at me. A candidate is allowed one rebuttal per candidate question. Because we have so many candidates, if the rebuttals start to become unwieldy or take up too much time, the moderator reserves the right to cut off further rebuttal opportunities so we can get to all the questions. We ask that candidates use closing statements to summarize the issues they have already discussed and their vision for the position they seek. Okay, and no word on Jordan Bringleson yet.
He's stuck on a plane. There's been circling for the last 30 minutes. So he said
Oh.
he's going to try to join as soon as possible. Wi-Fi is not working at this point.
Poor guy. Well, we'll at least give him an opportunity to make a statement if he joins us late. Depending on how late it is, he can join in the questions or at least make a statement. So let's start with the opening statements with who we have. And let's start with Gary Davis. You have 60 seconds.
Okay. So I'm Gary Davis. I live in North Mount Pleasant. I've been on the Mount Pleasant Planning Commission now since 2019. So I'm the second senior member of the Planning Commission. So as a result, a lot of people don't understand what the Planning Commission is really all about. You know, we principally deal with zoning issues and so forth, and so we listen to people who want to make zoning changes and so forth, and we listen to the committee, which is the paid committee by the town, by the town of Mount Pleasant, and then we make recommendations to the town council, and then the town council has they have the final word. So as I said, I've been on this commission now since 2019, which gives me a pretty good view and so forth of how things really work. I'm a businessman. I've been in business for myself almost my entire life. I believe in transparency. I believe in honesty, and I believe in listening to the residents of Mount Pleasant. I think that now.
Okay, Mr. Davis, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to cut you off there. Your time is up.
Oh, it's fast.
Yeah, 60 seconds goes by quickly. All right, Brianna Harmon.
Hi, I'm Brianna Harmon. I have been a resident of North Mount Pleasant in Commonwealth, which a lot of people don't know where that is. It's a neighborhood that's adjacent to Darrell Creek, back by the Wando High School. And we've been here for about 18 years, moved here from Southern California to just enjoy the low country, laid back way of life. Moved here with my husband, and we've since, over the last 15 years, added 3 more family members. We have 3 boys. We have a freshman at Wando High School. We have a 6th grader at Cario and a 3rd grader at Carolina Park Elementary. So we've seen a lot of growth on this end of town, and I definitely would love to represent, this part of Mount Pleasant as well as all of Mount Pleasant in the best way possible for the people. And that's it. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Derek Johnson.
All right. Good evening. My name is Derek Johnson. I want to first thank the League of Women Voters for putting this event together. And thank you for everyone involved and everyone logged in tonight for taking the time out of their busy lives to be here. That kind of engagement with our local government is important. 15 years ago, I chose Mount Pleasant as my home. I was married in Mount Pleasant 13 years ago to my beautiful wife, Lori. Together we have 2 girls, Tinsley and Colby. And as a proud girl dad, I'm heavily involved in coaching their soccer and basketball teams with Mount P Rec. And in my spare time, you can find me boating, fishing, at the beach, basically anything in and around the water. Professionally, I've built my career around problem solving, accountability, and delivering results. Mount Pleasant's the best place to live. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm hoping together we can keep it that way. I'm ready to serve. I'm here to serve the people of this town, and hope to earn your support. Well, thanks.
Thank you. Garrett Lacey.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Well, I certainly appreciate y'all having me tonight. My name is Garrett Lacey. I grew up in Mount Pleasant, actually grew up in Brickyard Plantation. I now reside in the Old Village. To give a little bit about me, I went to Wando High School, Trident Technical College. I own 2 businesses, and I'm a salesman for Palmetto Boat Sales. I am the former vice chair of the Planning Commission. As Mr. Davis mentioned earlier, a little bit of our duties. I'm a community leader. I'm the former chair of the Greater Charleston Young Republicans. I am a board member to several different associations that promote conservation throughout the Low Country. I am the only planning commissioner moved to deny what would be a planned development that could have potentially developed a South Carolina Department of Natural Resources held conservation easement, and in tandem would have also potentially been recommending to council what would be a tax increase. I certainly would appreciate your vote on March 25th. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Okay, David Spedden.
Okay. Hi, and a special thanks to the Women of League of Voters putting this important event together. I'm David Spedden. I want to be your next Mount Pleasant Council member. It's hard to compact everything into 60 seconds that I would like to tell you, so I'm going to start with a question for everybody. What can I do to make you and the town of Mount Pleasant more successful? My goal is to spend time talking and listening to the people of Mount Pleasant. I want to maintain a regular dialogue to stay in touch with the frontline community and use your feedback in all my decisions while serving for you. I live in Park West. I'm an active in the community through volunteering, fundraising, shopping local, and I just like being outside. I think we all do here. My wife, Evelyn, is going back to school and she's studying art at the College of Charleston. I have 2 adult sons, Trevor and Brendan. They're pursuing their careers and passions in upstate Vermont. And I had a long, successful career at UPS. My work ethic, skills, life experiences will enable me to be an excellent representative for you on the town council. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Swain.
Thanks, Heidi. Good evening. I'm a retired Air Force fighter pilot with 3 overseas combat tours and 34 years of service. I'm a native of Mount Pleasant also, to Christ Our King School and Bishop England High School before going over to the Air Force Academy. I'm retired teaching in the School of Engineering at the Citadel, and I decided to run because North Mount Pleasant needs some representation to go after the things that we are looking at. Industries outpacing infrastructure. Highway 41's a 2-lane evacuation route. Shem Creek Development Group owes us, we owe them $2.6 million. We need to pay our bills. Faison Road's an industrial site. Everybody that drives through there knows that. Tupelo 4 subdivisions in there in the commission's viewpoint right now. And there's a lot of other issues, but that's why I'm running, to solve some of the problems that we're trying to solve up here on the north side. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike Van Horn, Sr.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Again, Mike Van Horn Sr. moved to Mount Pleasant in 2009 with my wife, and we love this area. We have adapted everything, since we moved to this area. We originally are from the PA and Ohio area, so therefore we vacation in the Outer Banks a lot, and we just love the beach area. So Mount Pleasant won hands down when we decided where we wanted to move to. I've been in the restaurant business for over 43 years. At the end of this month, I will be semi-retired. Hopefully you folks will vote me in as the next town councilman. Things that I'm looking to do is to help with public safety, traffic, protect our green spaces, smart growth, and reduce our taxes. And of all the candidates, I just recently announced also what I'm going to do is I'm going to be donating my entire salary to 4 charitable organizations, which is for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, also St. Jude's Hospital, and also Just Be the Change to help with autism, and also Wake Up Carolina to help our youth with as far as dealing with drugs and everything else. So if you put me in, that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to donate my salary to those individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. And already this evening, I have already managed to mess up the order. Mike Tinky, I forgot about you, sir. I apologize. Your turn.
Thank you. I apologize for not being on the camera. I've had eye surgery and I look pretty battered right now. I'm a 42-year. Are you having a lot of sound coming back?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, let me start again. I'm a 42-year resident, a committed husband, father, and grandfather who understands the values that make our town special. I'm an experienced leader with proven record of civic engagement and problem solving. Some of the key issues are limiting development and preserve our town's character while supporting thoughtful planning. The leadership, listen and prioritizing to your interest over special interest. Resilience and sustainability, strengthening our tree ordinances, increasing our tree canopy, protecting our waterways, stormwater resilience, and fiscal responsibility, and building a more transparent government with increased citizen engagement. I believe that together we can offer a stronger, greener, and more connected Mount Pleasant, and I look forward to working with you in a collaborative way on these issues together.
All right, thank you very much. And before we move on to the questions, I just want to double check whether Jordan Bringleson might have been able to connect. Jennifer, do you have him?
No, don't have Jordan.
Okay, all right, I'm going to move on to question 1 then. All right, question 1 is, what strengths do you bring to the table that will make you an asset to the Mount Pleasant Town Council? And for this question, we will start with Brianna Harmon.
All right. Well, strengths that I would bring to town council. I've lived here long enough to see the immense amount of growth that we've experienced in, about the last 20 years that I've been here. And while a lot of it is good growth, the schools that have come up because of the people have been wonderful schools. I mean, I feel like that's why a lot of people move to Mount Pleasant, is to raise a family. And unfortunately, with all the almost overdevelopment and I feel like the town council or the town itself has kind of lost sight of the vision of what it is to live in Mount Pleasant and raise a family here, and what we find, what we hold important to our values here. So I hope to bring that back to the town.
All right, thank you. Derek Johnson, same question. Do you need me to repeat it? Just your strengths.
No, I think I got it. My strengths come from a variety of different places. While I've not lived in Mount Pleasant my whole life, although I'm a bit envious of the gentlemen who have here, I've lived all over. I've lived a variety of lifestyles in a variety of places, and seeing how different towns, different cities I've lived in are run and the way things are done there gives me a little different perspective. My professional experience, I'm product delivery driven. I'm quality driven. I meet deadlines, and I make sure that my clients, my stakeholders, the people I work for, and in this role would be the town of Mount Pleasant, that I deliver. Excuse me. I meet the needs of the people that I serve, basically. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Garrett Lacey?
Please restate the question for me.
The question is, what strengths do you bring to the table that will make you an asset to the Mount Pleasant Town Council?
Well, thank you. First and foremost, I grew up here, and I've been a public servant to all of the citizens of Mount Pleasant for what is essentially the past 2.5 to 3 years in the capacity of a planning commissioner. Beyond that, we hear what would be a upper, a lower, a north, a south. I'm the only candidate that had to grow up in the construction that most people are upset about. I certainly can understand that. Beyond saying that, my community involvement, my leadership is unscathed compared to everyone else. And with that being said, I am the only council member here that would move from the south end to the north end to solve and listen to all the problems. We've seen that throughout this forum thus far. Thank you.
Thank you. And David Spedden, what strengths do you bring?
Okay. I'm going to have to say through my career at UPS, I would bring leadership, conflict resolution, which is really important with all the issues that we have to resolve and look at. A key one is listening to understand, not to respond. So I really want to understand what the issues, the motivations are of certain people, or the goals of certain projects that we're working on so they serve the people. I'm a consensus builder. I did a lot of strategic planning at UPS, so I understand the long-term view and how difficult it is to set priorities and make sure that you're disciplined enough to stick to the tactical projects to achieve your goals. I've got a set of skills from project management, have a master's certificate from George Washington University in that discipline, and community involvement. I'm involved in a couple of different cycling groups, volunteer and do fundraising for local events like Lovello, the Ride to Stop Alzheimer's, and just personable and approachable. Thanks.
Thank you. And Bob Swain, what strengths do you bring?
I've been fortunate to have, as I said, spent my whole life born and raised here in Mount Pleasant, but I've been in the Air Force, rose up to the rank of the wing commander, the fighter wing, and both the strategic airlift wing. I'm a good listener and a problem solver. You have to be at that level. I was fortunate I could use my education benefits to go get a doctorate degree and teach engineering at the Citadel. I've lived in Hyman Avenue in Old Mount Pleasant. I've lived in the Cooper Estates area during high school, and now I live on North Mount Pleasant. So I've seen all the different parts of the city to live in, and I see all the problems. I want to represent the whole town of Mount Pleasant, not just where I live. There are issues everywhere when we look at Mount Pleasant. But we're just fortunate that everybody, after living all over the world, we chose Mount Pleasant to come back home to.
Thank you. And this time I'm not going to skip over Mike Tinky. So Mr. Tinky, what strengths do you bring to the table that will make you an asset to the Mount Pleasant Town Council?
Thank you. I believe I understand the values that make Mount Pleasant area so special. I've served as the president of Wild Dunes Resort. I've been the president of South Carolina Golf Course Owners Association. I understand the golf business. I've been president of the National Alliance for Accessible Golf to help individuals with disabilities. I'm a former recreation and tennis director, and really a pro at problem solving, collaboration, and getting things done. Specifically, for the last 5 years, I've worked within the town to unanimously get the new noise ordinance passed, the tree ordinance passed, and get a tree task force started to reforest our community. I'm currently the owner of a small business called Tinky Timberlands, which is a multi-generational sustainable forest landowner and a founding member of Green Neighborhoods Work to have HOAs and POAs more sustainable and resilient in their practices. I know the importance of a strong groundwork for planning for the future, and I'm looking forward to being able to serve you as a person who has attended probably every commission, committee, and town council meeting for the last 2.5 years. So I am very informed.
Okay, thank you very much. Mike Van Horn?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'm a common sense conservative. You know, my father has 7 kids. Also, I have 9 grandkids. So I understand what a lot of families deal with on a day-to-day basis. I've been a restaurant leader for over 43 years. So I've interfaced with different levels of government, also the public that entire time. You know, I believe in transparency and accountability. I'm a, strategic planner, a quick thinker, and also an individual that when tasked with something to get done, I take charge of that, responsibility and deliver, results. So again, at the end of the day, I think I bring a lot of skill sets for the diversity that I have through my career, both personal life as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally for this question, Gary Davis, what strengths do you bring to the table that will make you an asset to the Mount Pleasant Town Council?
Okay, I've been in business for myself most of my adult life. I think my main strength is the fact that I'm a very experienced and seasoned executive. I have a strong financial background. I graduated from Temple University with a degree in it's the School of Business and Public Administration. I'm a good listener. As I say, we had 500 people in a company that I formerly owned in Pittsburgh. I presently have another business here in Charleston, South Carolina, Davis Air, which is a FAA licensed air carrier. We operate several jet aircraft. But I think my main qualification is the fact of my strength, the fact that I'm a very strong, seasoned executive. And I'm a very good listener. I know how to listen. I know how to listen carefully. And I think I'll stop.
That 60 seconds will sneak up on you. Okay. All right. I am going to assume that nobody's going to have a rebuttal for other people's strengths. So let's move on to question 2. Question 2 is, what are your top 3 concerns for Mount Pleasant? And for this one, we're going to start with Derek Johnson.
All right. Bullet point level. My top 3 concerns, or the things that I feel are the most important for Mount Pleasant, are smart growth and development of infrastructure in a responsible way, protecting our natural environment, and transparency and accountability for our government. In regards to smart growth and infrastructure, development isn't going to stop in Mount Pleasant. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But the way we need to do it is to do it responsibly, be responsible to the land, to our coastal ecosystem, and to the families that already live here. Protecting our natural environment, the marshes, the wetlands, the low country itself is why people move here and why people want to raise their families here. With transparency and accountability, with our local government, I just feel like we need to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit on what's going on in our council meetings and with the mayor itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Garrett Lacey, what are your top 3 concerns for Mount Pleasant?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Again, I'm going to echo smart growth. We as a municipality are entering a time of redevelopment. We're going to have to look at it smartly. We're going to have to bring more players into this game. We're going to have to bring multiple associations, whether it be the council governments, SCDOT, the elected legislature, as we move forward while still protecting the conservation that we love here. If anything, I could speak at length, and so can my resume, about conservation, fisheries, sustainability, resiliency, should I say. That would be my second point. My third would also be a bit of economic development and transparency. We have got to make it feasible for these business owners to allow people to work in the town of Mount Pleasant. And I have to only commend members of council and the mayor that have further allowed transparency to come into our form of government. I believe that's paramount. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And David Spedden, what are your top 3 concerns?
Okay, I would start again. I know growth has been mentioned a couple of times, but I do think our local businesses, we need to focus on them, like things like Mount Pleasant made to attract talent, have our local businesses grow. We don't always need to bring a business in to drive new revenues for the town. We need to expand the ones that we already have in place. Another one would be transparency and community engagement. I feel past elections, people just aren't engaged in our community, and we need more of that. So we need to do more outreach to have everyone involved. And then improved future planning. I see that we're doing some future planning, but I don't know how well that's controlled in the decision criteria that's done to keep it there and keep a discipline of execution. It seems like we were surprised by a couple of projects recently that have caused some dissertation up at the northern end, like Faison Road. So we need to really have detail and control over that growth and understand the scope and have it defined before we execute.
Okay, thank you. And Bob Swain, your top 3 concerns.
I sort of talked about my top 3 concerns right at the beginning, but it rolls into with House Bill 4050 that's being proposed right now, and Senate Bill 227 with concurrency programming. And basically it allows us to grow the town without overwhelming the roads, the sewer systems, and critical infrastructure versus using the moratoriums. So that's when I talk about the industry outpacing the infrastructure. We need to ensure that we don't do like previous councils and abdicate our responsibility and the growth of a whole section of the town where we have no guardrails to see what the developers are doing. Highway 41, I've already talked about it, because Clemens Ferry Road will feed even more traffic into Highway 41 and 17. And just the Faison Road that everybody's talking about, it looks like it's a Great Wall right across the street from the senior living. We have Oceanside Academy out there. There's going to be 103 tractor trailer parking spots in there. That traffic is going to be outrageous. I know I'm running out of time, so thank you.
All right, thank you. And Mike Tinky, what are your top 3 concerns for Mount Pleasant?
Yes, thank you. The multitude of impacts of overdevelopment, traffic congestion, school crowding, pollution and litter, tree loss, continued public safety and services an issue. 2, continued implementation of live, work, and play in connected communities with Mount Pleasant Way, waterfront public access, transportation infrastructure to reduce time and traffic and increase quality of life along with smart growth for residential and commercial. Also, preparation for the coming storms, hurricanes, flooding, sea level rise, heat waves, and to become a more sustainable operationally, environmentally, and physically, and really tying it all together with building community in Mount Pleasant, bringing the community together so we volunteer and protect our green spaces and our history and culture and our neighborhoods for years to come.
Okay, thank you. And Mike Van Horn, your top 3 concerns?
Yes, thank you. First of all, public safety to include, traffic. We need to make sure that, our roadways are cleared in an adequate time, and also we maintain the safety as far as the pedestrians, bicyclists, kids going to and from school. As far as the smart growth that's been talked about, we need to have continued smart growth, but let's make sure we're protecting our green spaces in the process. We have too many areas where, we want to fill in marsh areas or whatnot for the roadways. And the last thing I'd like to see is reduce taxes. At some point in time, when we continue the smart growth, we're going to be developed to the point where we're not going to have these individuals that are going to be sitting there giving us impact fees and whatnot. So we need to be sustainable, moving forward. So I would like to see us reduce taxes so that way we can, remain smart with our financial fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Gary Davis, your top 3 concerns?
I think that the pendulum has swung too far toward economic development. And I think it's definitely affecting the quality of life for those of us who live in Mount Pleasant. I'm on a planning commission. I'm known as the tree hugger on the planning commission. Faison Road, which we've talked about before, is a perfect example of uncontrolled economic development at the cost of the quality of life for people that live in North Mount Pleasant, and also people that live, in the town itself. Green space, we're decimating our green space. If you go out toward, the Costco area, you can see where, all the trees are being cut down. It's just the environment, to me, is one of the things that we absolutely need to protect, because the way we're going right now, we're not going to have any more environment. And so I really think that too much emphasis is on this economic growth. I think we need to focus on the quality of life.
Sir, you don't have to cut off, right? You can finish your sentence.
I just think that the quality of life is being adversely affected by this economic growth. And I think, to me, I would stop a lot of this economic growth and focus more on things that benefit the people who live here. And that would also, handle some of the traffic problem. I'm opposed to some of this high density housing that they're talking about, because, you put more houses in apartments in a smaller place. Everybody has 2 cars. All that does is create more traffic, I'm ultra conservative. I'm probably hyper conservative when it comes to that. And I will stop right now at that.
Okay, thank you. All right. And for everyone, you do not have to stop in the middle of your sentence. You can finish your thought in your sentence. Okay. Brianna Harmon, your top 3 concerns?
Right. I would have to first off say that our overpopulation and growth over the last 20 years has just been hard to believe how much we've grown. And I was looking back at a study from 2007 stating our projected growth was supposed to be at 75,000. I think we're currently at about close to 100,000 people in Mount Pleasant. And geographically, we're a peninsula, so we don't have a lot of spread. We don't have a lot of places to go. And I just feel like we are, filling in our wetlands and our risk of flooding, that all this really needs to be studied. And I agree we need a more comprehensive long-term plan for the town and sorry, I see the stop. I'll try to finish my sentence. I hate to see the town so focused on bringing in more economic growth, particularly to our north end of town. And it's just gotten really hard to look at some of these buildings and industrial areas that used to be, place, I wanted my children to grow up. So sorry.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Do I have any rebuttals? You probably don't want to rebut other people's priorities, right? All right. So the next question, question 3. Have you had an opportunity to observe the Mount Pleasant Town Council in session? And if so, what are your impressions? So let's start with Garrett Lacey for this question.
Oh, Lord, I only have 60 seconds. So I'll make it very fast. When it comes down to the town council at the moment, there's certainly a lot of split votes that are going 4 and 4. We're seeing different ideas being debated. Essentially, we're seeing votes swayed and gone different ways. What the town needs to fulfill Sheriff Ritchie's term is someone that's willing to keep us in business and keep us running for what is essentially the next 6-7 months. Someone that's going to stand on their own, represent everyone, and vote their conscience and their priority every time. It's too often as an observer, which I am one of few that are actually on this call that have been going to council meetings, that we see quite too many personal issues being brought to what would be the business of the town of Mount Pleasant, and that's got to be squashed. We've got to be sure that we fulfill Sheriff Ritchie's term that proactively benefits every single resident within the town of Mount Pleasant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're very good at ending right at that 60 seconds.
She's really good at holding up the stop sign.
All right. David Spedden, what are your impressions of Mount Pleasant Town Council meetings?
Well, I think there is a lack of diversity, and what I mean by that is points of view, that there's not enough representation from the upper side of town. So sometimes you can see hesitation when projects up on the upper side of Mount Pleasant are discussed. You can see there's a lack of understanding what those impacts may be. Sometimes I feel they're a little camera shy and really don't want to share what they need to. And they need to be able to get past that and have a little thicker skin, talk about their opinions a bit more publicly and not so much in the backroom sessions. I just think there just needs to be a bit more transparency and honesty in the statements and follow through. Attention to detail on some of the projects you can see is lacking. So I just think some more accountability and teeth in what they do and the decisions that they make when it comes to building out further development, controlling projects, et cetera.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Mm-hmm. Bob Swain, what are your impressions of town council meetings?
My impression is that we're having problems when we have a town council that sets up votes over the holidays to try to push the tax increase on all of us without anybody talking about it or discourse. You can't, it's real easy to take other people's money and spend it. It's hard to actually put your plan out there and let people come at you and talk to you from different levels so that you can come up with a good plan. It's like open source computer programming languages. You want to ensure that if you have open source, that everybody can come in and find out what's wrong with your program versus a proprietary service. That's what we need at the town council. We can't have the executive sessions go into executive session for an hour and discuss who knows what. They need to be able to go in executive session the amount of time and discuss what their purpose was. We can't let the lawyers drive town council, and we can't have them voting to tax us without our representation.
Okay, thank you. Mike Tinky, what are your impressions of town council meetings?
Having watched town council meetings for decades, we've had good times and we've had bad times. We've had acrimony and we've had consensus. Today, we do have personal preferences coming in to the deliberations, which are destructive for citizens and the community. I think as long as we work very diligently at the commission level, the committee level, and we are very collaborative and thoughtful and take the time, we will have less 5-4 votes and more votes that have the majority, more than the majority of the people. A good example of that is the noise ordinance that was very divisive. And I worked with Carl Ritchie, and he ended up supporting a collaborative effort between the business and the residents that was unanimously passed by town council. But we took 2.5 years. We didn't try to rush to it in a 2-month, 1-month process. We did the same thing with the tree ordinance. It took us 2.5 years, but we got unanimous vote. The same thing happened with the tree task force, unanimous vote. So I have proven track record of being able to work together and bring collaboration and build bridges on town council because I've done it.
Okay, thank you. And Mike Van Horn, what are your impressions of town council meetings?
Thank you. A great question. You know, at this point in time, it comes down to leadership. You know, every member of town council is a leader throughout the community, and there's a lot of contention amongst the council. You know, some individuals bring forward a lot of great ideas, and they ended up, you know, as Garrett pointed out, you know, you end up in a tie situation where they end up dying out. You know, prime example, you know, the most one in December we talked about as far as this council meeting, where, you know, we should sit there and have first reading, second reading, and third reading on situations, you know, so that way things aren't passed through by the end of the night, like Bob was talking about, as far as, you know, the possible tax that was coming through for Patriots Point. It's important that we have that transparency. So, you know, right now, I think, you know, folks have to sit there and take a step back and come together and make sure that we're agreeing on the same thing, moving the, you know, the entire town forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Gary Davis, your impressions of town council meetings.
So I think one of the problems with town council, and I have to agree with Bob Swain on all this, is that too many decisions are made in the back room with, you know, executive session. And it just, they're just not open. I think there's too much secrecy that goes on. You know, the other problem I have with town council is, you know, people ask questions, you know, you have the public forum, you can ask a question, you get your 2 minutes to ask the question. And the mayor says, thank you. And that's like the end of it. I mean, there's never an opportunity for, you know, the mayor or town council people to actually answer some of the questions that are raised during these town council meetings. And I also think that, you know, as a businessman, been in business for a long time, I don't let the lawyers run my business for me. And I think that the, you know, people in town council, a lot of them don't have the executive experience. And a lot of them, I frankly, you know, the lawyers, I think some of them are intimidated by lawyers, and I just think that's wrong. I think we just, I don't know, I just think needs to be a lot more transparency, a lot less secrecy, and a lot less going on in the executive session. So that we all know exactly what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Okay, Brianna Harmon, same question. What are your impressions of the town council meetings?
Yes, I would agree. I was really surprised by the executive sessions. It was almost as if right when you were getting to the meat of the argument, they're like, time out, let's go talk about this and we'll come back with a perfect answer. And I do feel like there's a lot of, you know, packaging everything to make it look a certain way to get passed through. And then once it goes into construction, it is a totally different beast. I think we have a big problem with the donut holes of Charleston County in Mount Pleasant that we need to address on some level. I don't know if we could make it, you know, once a property gets transferred to a new owner, they have to annex into the town. I'm not pretending to know everything right now, but I do feel like there needs to be accountability and transparency with the decisions that are made, and just more public awareness for, I mean, nobody up north knew that there was going to be a, you know, giant warehouse distributorship. Like nobody saw that coming. So I don't know. We need to fix something.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
sorry.
Thank you. Derek Johnson, same question.
All right, tough to go last on this one because there seems to be a lot of consensus among all the candidates that there needs to be more transparency, there needs to be more objectivity, there needs to be less favoritism. So I had a chance to think about my answer a little bit, and really what would I do to change those things, right? I would strengthen our citizen advisory commissions. We already have commissions in place, but I don't feel like they're very well known to most of the citizens of Mount Pleasant, and I don't think they're as strong as they could be. I would fully support a third reading of new ordinances that come before the council. That would give the residents more time to understand the issues, understand the pros and cons of what's being proposed, and give them an opportunity to weigh in on it as well. And I would also say, let's have an executive session audit and review. We all agree that there's too much of that going on with executive sessions and the behind closed doors activities. Let's have a council, maybe have the whole council review the notes of an executive session and let them make the determination as a group, whether that's shared to the public or not, and not leave it behind closed doors. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, there did seem to be quite a bit of consensus on that question, so I am assuming there aren't any rebuttals. I'm not seeing any. Okay, let's move on to question number 4. Excuse me. Mount Pleasant does not have a runoff election system when all candidates receive less than 50% of the overall vote. If you are elected to town council, would you be interested in researching the use of ranked choice or instant runoff voting for future town council elections? And for this one, let's start with David Spedden.
That one's a little tough because the participation locally in elections aren't that strong. And then when you have this many candidates involved, it's hard to hit some of the marks that you're setting out there. Runoffs, it's a tough call. I just feel you have the election and you're done. Whoever gets the majority moves forward. I've lived in other areas where that was pretty much the case, and it seemed to work well. If we're creating additional expense, you may have voters flip to another candidate, but I'm just not a fan of that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Bob Swain, same question. Would you be interested in researching the use of ranked choice or instant runoff voting?
I'm with David. I saw that the budget was for like $80,000 for this runoff, and everybody's shaking their heads. They saw the same thing in the budget. We can't afford to keep having runoffs for runoffs. Understand that maybe during the regular, like in the fall, if you don't get 51%, that's a great time to do the runoff election. But for a runoff election to have another runoff election doesn't make sense. Last time they had a runoff election on an off-cycle vote was probably about 7 years ago, and they said that only 3,700 people voted. And out of 3,700 people, let's say that we get 5,500 this time or so. Yeah, if you win by one vote, you win by one vote. That's just the way it's going to be. And then you get 7 months before you decide you're going to run again if you win. But runoffs for runoffs don't make a whole lot of sense. So I agree with Dave.
Okay, before we move on, I think you mean special election, right? This is a special election.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Mike Tinky, same question. Do you need me to repeat it, or are you good?
No, I would agree with the two previous speakers. It's very expensive for the town to do a special election runoff. It's very expensive in time and effort for the candidates who are volunteering their time, essentially. And so I think I would go with the all-American way of if one vote, every vote counts, and if you win by one vote, you win by one vote.
Okay, thank you. Mike Van Horn, same question.
Yeah, I agree with everyone so far. It's a waste of our tax dollars, and at the end of the day, as it was said, the majority should take this situation. We have 39 precincts in Mount Pleasant, and this election specifically on March 25th, I think we're only going to have maybe between 4,000 to 6,000 people that are going to vote during this time frame. So again, to sit there and try to have a runoff, it's not worth it, conducively. In November, we're going to have, that opportunity with 4 candidates and also the mayor's seat. So, at that point in time, I don't see a runoff. It's like, the top 3 candidates move forward, and whoever's selected as mayor, congratulations to that individual. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the question because it's been a while. but Gary Davis, you're next. If you're elected to town council, would you be interested in researching the use of ranked choice or instant runoff voting for future town council elections?
I don't believe in the runoffs either. You know, the majority wins. To me, it's basically that simple, you know, and if it's one vote, it's one vote. And the other thing is, although you didn't ask this question, I also think that the voting should be, we should be electing people by district as opposed to at large. You know, theoretically, all members of town council could live on the same street. And I just don't think that's right. I don't think that there's enough representation being given to people that live, say, in the old part of Mount Pleasant, or the people that live in Liberty Hill, or the people that live in Liberty Farms, rather, or the people live in, you know, North Mount Pleasant, you know, but in reply to your direct question, I don't think we should have runoffs. If you win by one vote, you won by one vote, and that's like the end of it, because these special elections and runoffs are expensive, they're time consuming, and I just don't see where it's necessary.
Thank you. And Brianna Harmon, same question. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, I won't spend any more time on this. I think we're all in agreement. The majority vote should win. It's hard enough getting people out to vote as it is, and to make everyone go out again for the same election is just muddies the water. And I say whoever wins the first round wins it.
Okay, and Derek Johnson, same question.
Well, yeah, I think we're all in consensus here. I think that's none of us are in favor of it, myself included. Obviously, participation is low for an initial election. I would only estimate that it'd be lower for a runoff election. And just to put a couple of numbers on it, the town originally budgeted $20,000 for this special election coming up that we're all a part of. And the revised budget added another $61,000 to that. And with the whip of a pencil and the bang of a gavel, you know, that $61,000 was spent just so we have the opportunity to sit on the town council. So obviously very expensive. That money could go a lot of other places and do a lot of other better things than an additional election, because that would incur even more costs. So again, not in support.
Okay, thank you. And Garrett Lacey, your thoughts?
I'm going to echo the sentiments of everyone else. I believe we're in consensus, when it comes to that. If anything, I will say there's a Senate bill authored by Senator Campson. It's S-37, pertaining particularly to municipal elections to kind of clean this up moving forward. But also, I'm going to touch on something. Gary opened the door on this. We've heard a lot about districts, and we've heard different methods and different ideas. And of course, it's not going to be a one solution to the entire problem. But I will tell you right now that if the town of Mount Pleasant, as they've tried years ago, if the residents want districts, I believe the only way to approach that is to be by putting it on the ballot to allow everyone to voice their opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I thought it was interesting that none of you mentioned ranked choice. You only talked about runoffs. But anyway, all right, let's move on to.
Can I make a comment on what Garrett had to say?
Sure. Is that you, Garrett? Is that you, Mr. Davis?
Garrett.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Garrett's right on track. You know, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, it was on the ballot. You know, should we have council members appointed elected at large or by district? And for some reason, it failed, but it didn't fail by a whole lot. And you know, Garrett's right. I think I totally agree with Garrett. You know, I think that it should be by district, and I think it should be a referendum to let the voters of Mount Pleasant decide whether we want to have council people represented by district or at large, which is the way it is right now.
Okay, great.
Have a rebuttal to that, please, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
Understand that I'm not saying that I'm advocating for districts, rather that I'm advocating for the public's choice to voice their opinion on the ballot. Thank you.
Gotcha. And Mr. Spedden, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I do. I'm in favor of districts. We're surrounded by areas that manage that way, like Charleston County. They've now got 9 districts. That's 22. We've got Hilton Head with 6 wards districts. It's a common sense approach. Somerville has 6. Charleston Council has 12. We've got 7 for congressional leaders. I could see us easily doing a hybrid to break that in and see if it does work by having two districts, two zip codes, 29466 and 29429 equal about 47 to 48,000 people. And then 29464 is about 51,000 people. So you have a pretty natural way to break that down and make that happen and have a balanced population and maybe have 3 seats from each and still have 2 at large for a while till we kind of burn that idea in and see how it rolls.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else
Yes,
on this topic?
yes.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Chinky.
I would look at, just as I've done in other things, I'd have a deliberative comparative analysis of other towns of the same size to see what's working for them and what's not. I don't think an either or I think that's too much of a blunt instrument. There may be a hybrid, whether you have 4 open seats in 5 districts or some variation of the above. But I do think it's important to study the issue, understand the issue, and see how it best serves the constituents. On a personal level, I think each of us may do well if we just could be in our own precinct. But we don't learn about the needs of the other areas of town. So I think a study of this with comparative to other towns is the best way to go about it. And then at that point, we can determine whether it goes to a vote of the citizenry or not.
Okay, great. Anybody else?
I'd like to say something real quick.
Sure.
Go ahead, Bob.
Thanks, Mike. And I appreciate what Mr. Tinkey's saying, but I truly think a referendum, just like Gary says, it's not up to the town council to decide what's best for the people. I think sometimes the people should decide what's best for them.
That's not what I said. I think it's important to understand what options you involve with people. So if you gave them 3 options in a referendum, then that's fine.
Okay.
I'd be totally supportive of that.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chinky. Thanks for clarifying. Okay, anybody else?
Yes, ma'am. I agree, that we should at some point in time move to a district situation because again, we need to have representation across all of Mount Pleasant. As mentioned earlier, just about everybody could live on one street, and I'm a firm believer that all neighborhoods matter. Though I like to represent, every situation in Mount Pleasant. I know what happens in my immediate area, like a lot of folks that live in the North End as well. We may not know what everything that's going on in the other districts themselves. So that way it would help, all individuals understand what's happening in each of those areas. And then collectively, everything should be, the at-large individual should only be the mayor, should be the only one that would be at large at that point in time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else who has not spoken yet? Yes. Brianna, sorry, I didn't tell you who. Brianna Harmon, go ahead.
Thank you. And I just would like to point out that this was not the original question, which is why I didn't speak to this issue. But since everyone is discussing now, I would like to say that why not just put it out for a vote? It's up to the residents. It's not up to any individual person to make this decision. Of course, getting a better perspective and everyone's perspective in town would be more ideal than everyone living in one part of town. But yeah, why not give it to the people and let them decide? Thanks.
Okay, and Mr. Johnson, had you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'm going to vary the opinion here a little bit. I'm not thrilled with the idea of districting, just for the potential of gerrymandering. There are obviously neighborhoods and parts of Mount Pleasant that are far more represented currently. And the voice of some areas, some parts of Mount Pleasant may be lost. I believe currently, and I might be a little off on this, the current town council, there's only 1 member that lives north of the Isle of Palms connector. That to me seems very misrepresentative of our town. And if the districts go into place, they could be gerrymandered into that sort of control to keep it there. So while I'm not completely in favor of it, if there is an option, or if that is something that comes up, it should definitely 100% be put in front of the people and not just in front of the council.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to cut off any further discussion on this topic here. and move on to the next question. All right. The town of Mount Pleasant completed phase 1 of a study to describe a transit vision for the town. It was published in 2018, unless I believe it was published in 2018. Have you read this study, and what are your suggestions for attracting public transportation to Mount Pleasant and increasing its effectiveness? Let's start with Mr. Swain.
That's a great question, because today Garrett and I rode the bus. And I can tell you that the long-range planning that goes into the buses and the systems that we were on today are important for the livelihood for a lot of the people that work here in Mount Pleasant. We talked to one individual that took him 2 hours from Johns Island to get out here. It's the Long-Range Planning Commission up there. When I talked to the Chamber of Commerce, talked about the buildup of the Highway 52. We have to look at transportation from 3 counties, all 3 counties, the Dorchester, Berkeley, and Charleston. Because if Dorchester coughs, we're all going to catch a cold. We need to make a comprehensive long-range planning tool, and we need to ensure that we do have ways of people getting to work. And I could say a lot more, because those are great people out there riding the bus. It's convenient, it's accessible, and it's safe, and I think we need to keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tinky, what are your suggestions for attracting public transportation to Mount Pleasant and increasing its effectiveness?
I thought what was done this morning and with William Harrison, who heads up the project for the transit, is excellent. Get people to ride the bus, the elected officials, and see what it's like, and invite people to come, because this is essential for our workforce that comes from 3 or 4 counties around, to be able to have easy access into town, and it reduces traffic, and it almost ensures transportation for people that many times would have to ride share, and that's many times very undependable. So I think in order to reduce the gridlock we have on our roadways and get our workforce back and forth, we should work to more models in other cities that are comparable southern cities that have very doable and very used public transportation. I think that involves not only the transit, but it also involves bicycle and other ways to get from one place to another. And the last way to help it is have hubs where people don't have to drive their car because they live, work, and play in the same place. But I'm very supportive of public transportation and moving it forward.
Sorry, Heidi, you're muted, so I'll wait for you to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I keep coughing, so I keep muting myself. Same question. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, thank you.
Okay.
I'm all for the transit itself. I have not had an opportunity to read that, but being an individual that has utilized transit in my, lifetime, it's all too important to sit there and be able to get from point A to point B. Being in the restaurant industry for the last 43 years, I have so many employees that have relied on, the CARTA transit and stuff. In Mount Pleasant, we've seen the opportunity with the electric buses that are going through as well and stuff. So, economically, it's just developing that, making sure that we maintain the roads to have the efficiencies. We need to have an area where they have an opportunity for the buses to pull off, or to be a lot safer for individuals in the pedestrian traffic, sort of like what they do right there in front of the town, Mount Pleasant Town Council, where they have that little cutout area for the bus to pull into and stuff. So I'm a firm believer that we need to move this forward, and I'm envious that I didn't get to join, Garrett and Bob this morning and stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Gary Davis, same question on public transportation.
I think that public transportation could be a definite benefit to the people that live outside of Mount Pleasant, and probably a lot of the people who work in Mount Pleasant, live outside of Mount Pleasant, Somerville, Moncks Corner, areas like that. I think the real key, though, would be the scheduling of it all, because, people work at different shifts, people work at different places, and the other thing is people love their cars, I'm a firm believer in public transportation, but I think a real hard study would have to be given to where people work, what their hours of work are, the bus schedules and so forth. And it's not an easy problem to solve. And then again, you just have to understand that people love their cars, maybe, more carpooling could be something to cut back on some of the traffic situations that we have right now in Mount Pleasant. So, fundamentally, I think it's a great idea. I just think a lot of study needs to be given, to this matter to see as far as scheduling and so forth, and would people really use the bus to come to Mount Pleasant and go back to work and go home, basically,
All right, thank you so much. Okay, Brianna Harmon, same question. Public transportation.
All right. I also got to ride the bus with Mr. Hamilton. And I mean, he is the most enthusiastic transport person I've ever met in my entire life, public transport. And he was very knowledgeable and told us all about the history of the bus and CARTA and how the number of bus riders had peaked out. I think it was shortly before COVID, and has gone down essentially after the pandemic and never got back up to that point. So with that being said, I'm not sure that people are going to offices as much as they once were. So I love that we do have the option to take the bus in Mount Pleasant and all over Charleston County. And I also learned that the Dash bus downtown is free, so you can hop on that and get all over downtown Charleston, which is great. So I think just spreading awareness throughout the town and downtown Charleston would be great.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Derek Johnson, same question on public transportation.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy problem to get a handle on, and I don't think there's any one single solution that we can look at to solve this. I think part of the problem we have, and it comes with our growth, is there's attainable housing is limited in Mount Pleasant, where people have to live elsewhere to work here. So I think that's one thing that we haven't looked at or haven't discussed tonight that can help that. I think that the increasing the bus service and it is a great service. I haven't had a chance to do the ride yet, like the other candidates have, but it is on my schedule. It's still limited, and it's still kind of at the control of the Charleston area, right? It's not something that we can control ourselves. And another option or another idea, I guess, maybe is let's increase the use and the availability of bike lanes or LSV lanes. While you can add to the number of people traveling to and from, adding a bike lane or adding an LSV lane will not increase the size of the road surface area as it would just making bigger, wider roads for more cars.
Okay, thank you. And Garrett Lacey, same question.
Yes, ma'am. Public transit is paramount, and it is addressed in the comprehensive plan. We've all been made aware of it. Again, Mr. Swain and myself rode this morning and heard some interesting testimony, and I learned a lot personally. With that being said, I would like to see the interaction and collaboration with different forms of government, county, COG, town, as we push that into what's now Mount Pleasant Way, All-American Boulevard, Ed Von Key. We have the ability to turn every bus station, as Mike Van Horn mentioned this in front of Town Hall. Every single one of those should look exactly like that one throughout the town of Mount Pleasant. But then again, I will echo, and I'm going to say this a lot, we're going to have to work collectively with other entities and forms of government, as well as developers, as we move through these projects. To end that, I do believe it's something we have to look at, and I do believe that it's something that hasn't truly been kept up with as our growth has continued to become what it is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And David Spedden, same question.
Okay. Well, having worked in Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, I've seen both sides of it. D.C. has an amazing public transportation service. Atlanta struggles. Explosive growth, infrastructure didn't keep up with that growth. Kind of sounds familiar in our town. I'm an absolute advocate about our bus network. I really do think we need to look a little bit more at dedicated bus lanes during peak time. Like Garrett had mentioned, we need bus stops that people won't mind waiting for the bus at. When the weather is bad and they're out in open air, it's just not the best situation to advocate and encourage people to ride the bus. We probably should also look at an awareness program, so we're advocating people to do it, and possibly incentives to ride the bus. Leave your car home for a week. Is there anything that we could do? Maybe a reduced rate on their bus rides. I think we just need to advertise it more, promote it more, and town council members, like all of us have as candidates, ride it. Get a good feel for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any rebuttals? Okay. Next question. Where do you stand on the issue of promoting infrastructure that allows seniors to age in place with dignity? And what ideas do you have to make that feasible? Let's start with Mike Tinky.
Thank you. I think the biggest issue is redevelopment and the cost of redevelopment and the zoning that will allow the types of buildings that will work very well for seniors. Cost is a big issue now. And so I think having cottage courts or different types of settings like Seaside and the other area, Frankie Home, et cetera, it's just finding places that developers can redevelop to make it more effective and more accessible to people. One of the town council members that's a good friend of mine has told me, and others have, that there's long waiting lists in town. And it's important to get the cost of the units and the cost of the housing down. And if that involves potentially looking at the types of building structures and the incentives that might be there for that, I think we need to be looking at them. And they need to be located in hubs and areas where people can live, work, and play without necessarily getting in a car.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on, Mr. Tinky, did I skip you on the public transportation question?
No.
Okay, good. Sorry, I thought I did. Sorry. All right. Mike Van Horn, same question about infrastructure for seniors to age with dignity.
Well, first of all, I'd like to see the fact that we don't end up in a situation like at Faison in the Carolina Park area where we're developing, commercial areas in front of senior centers. Secondly, it's not something we can do at the town level, but everybody can get involved, and let's push our representatives to get a homestead exemption credit passed, above this $50,000 that's currently in place. There's an opportunity we could sit there and make it 33%, where it would save individuals a lot of money on their home property tax. And also, I'm a firm believer that at some point in time, I like to see where we have any individual over the age of 70, they don't pay taxes at all. Doesn't matter whether it's state, federal, sales tax, anything. Get to that point where we can eliminate those taxes, because by that time, folks have already, put enough time in and paid their dues. Let's make sure they can, live in their houses comfortably, where they're not getting priced out from property taxes and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Davis, same question about infrastructure to allow seniors to age in place with dignity.
Okay, so one of the things that I'm really concerned about is we had 35 acres of land out near Faison Road that was sold to a private developer. That 35 acres was purchased with COVID money. And the original purpose of that land was for things that would benefit the community, senior housing, some affordable housing and things like that. Let's face it, North Mount Pleasant has, more space right now. And the fact when this 35 acres was sold, there were no covenants, there were no restrictions. The town council did a terrible job selling that land without any restrictions, because we could have had senior citizen centers there. If you look at Faison Road on the right-hand side, you're going toward the airport, you've got Merrill Gardens, and you've got places where senior citizens are living right now. But across the street from that, you've got this huge warehouse, and now they're going to build an industrial park. Why are we doing things like this? It simply does not make any sense to me what town council is doing right now. And if I'm on the town council, it'll be only 1 vote out of 9, but I'll do my best to try to stop some of these things that are happening right now.
Thank you very much. Okay, Brianna Harmon, same question. Do you need me to repeat it?
Sorry. Yeah, can you repeat it, please?
Where do you stand on the issue of promoting infrastructure that allows seniors to age in place with dignity? And what ideas do you have to make that feasible?
I feel like public safety is a big one. Our roadways and just giving them the ability to walk safely anywhere is that opportunity seems like it's getting slimmer by the day with the traffic patterns and the amount of people everywhere. But yeah, like on Faison Road, where they have the 55 and over community, they built the Merrill Gardens right there. And then they put up an industrial warehouse right next to it. And it's just, I don't know how that happened. Again, with the town council making the decision to allow that in a highly residential area. I feel like we need to make sure that doesn't happen again. And oh, sorry. All right.
Thank you. You're good.
Yeah.
Derek Johnson, same question. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, I think I'm good. It's tough. I have my parents have moved to Mount Pleasant following me here. And they're getting to that point in their lives where we have to start considering their care and their lifestyle and their livelihood in the later years of their life. And I think that it's about choice. And what I mean by that, it is about choice of the council. It's about the choice of the people in the town, and about the governance over it in terms of, until we choose to make that a priority over commercial development, over economic growth, and make that a priority, that's where we're going to need to make the biggest change. We have the resources, we have the land, we have we have the start of the infrastructure for it. It's about choice. We just need to choose to make this a priority for the town, and that, I think, would lead to great resolution.
Thank you. Garrett Lacey, same question, infrastructure for seniors.
Infrastructure for seniors. In my opinion, I believe that when it comes to the infrastructure for seniors and senior facilities in specific, we've now reached the point of smart growth and redevelopment. In saying that, we're going to have to look at different tracts of land. We're going to have to look at public services, essential services, and infrastructure moving forward. I cannot cite the number off the top of my head, but I know that quite often our essential public services are called to senior centers for falls and things of that measure. With that being said, in a proactive, forward-thinking sense with redevelopment, we're going to have to bring a lot of different views in that regard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And David Spedden, same question.
Okay, thank you. We talked about more physical infrastructure as we're going through this, and it's an important issue. I like what was said about the homestead credit, and that seniors do need to pay less on their taxes, especially property taxes, so they can afford in-home services. So we really need to look at the infrastructure of support that we have for in-home type services as opposed to assisted living. It's a lot less expensive. Someone can stay in their home, remain in their neighborhood, have their neighbors around them that still can help out and check in on them. And it's just a more graceful, and I think one of the words you used in the question was to live and eventually be gone in dignity. And at home, and having in-home services, I think that's one of the best ways to go. So we really need to assess that and how well our community is being serviced with those and what the costs are, and see if there's anything that can be done to make them affordable for any senior. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bob Swain, same question.
Yeah, I think I'm going to attack it like David said on this age in place, because we all know the studies show that it's cheaper to keep somebody at home and let them age in place versus going to Summerby or South Bay or Frankie's Place. And I've told my wife, I said, the only way I'm leaving my house, hopefully, is either with McAllister Smith, or now I have Mike Van Horn in his pickup truck and his big sign in there. But basically my feeling is that you have to look at like long-term care policies. You got to make those available, and we can come up with all kinds of ways to do that. There's the other ways of keeping people at home with travel nurses, technology. I have that Cardia app. I don't need it, but my daughter gave it to me for Christmas, and it's a great way of checking yourself with your blood pressure, everything, and you can do the telemedicine with your doctors and nurses. Travel nurses can come check you once a week. It's just there's a lot of different ways we can do this, and I think that it's cheaper to age in place. Not everybody can. And they're going to have to go to senior living. And we got to make sure that we don't make them lose the wealth of their whole generation, go down the drain. I'm sorry, real quick, that's what's happening. These folks save their whole lives and then they have to put it back in senior living. And I just think that's wrong. We got to come up with a solution.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask, I'm sorry, were there any rebuttals? Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brianna Harmon.
I just would like to say that, I mean, the town council is not going to solve the senior living crisis issue. That is a nationwide issue. I know we just put my in-laws into a nursing home, and it was awful. My father-in-law passed away about 6 weeks after leaving his home. So that was a very hard decision to make. And it does take away his, a sense of purpose. So anything we can do for that. I am hearing a little bit of sprinkles in about we need more senior living areas, which I would just like to point out. My mom has worked at Rebel. It was previously Sandpiper in Mount Pleasant, and she's been there for about 10 years now. And they do not have a wait list. They had a wait list at one time years ago, but they do have available independent senior living spaces, and I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right.
I just have one thing to say,
Sure.
Finding a way to have senior people continue to live in their homes. I don't know if it's possible or not, but if we could develop a program or programs, outreach programs that would be sponsored by the town council to let elderly people continue to live in their homes. It would have to be, outreach programs that I don't believe they exist right now. But, that's certainly, as you get older, and you're in your house for like 15, 20 years or something like that, you don't want to go to a senior center. You want to be home where your comfort level is. And, maybe we could develop some outreach programs and lower taxes and incentives for people to stay in their homes as opposed to, going to some of the senior centers.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'm just going to ask one more question, so we're not going too late into the evening here. The question is, do you have suggestions for increasing the amount of workforce housing that are not already in planning? So we're going to the kind of the other end of the age spectrum. We're talking about workforce housing now. So let's start with Mike Van Horn.
Thank you. Great question. First of all, when it comes to affordable housing, we all know the average median price of a home in Mount Pleasant is upwards of about $800,000. So a lot of it has to take a look at the areas that we have that are zoned residential. Make sure that we're not impeding on any of our green spaces, but sit there and build areas where we can have the density in that sense. I heard cottage housing earlier and stuff. That's more for the older individuals. But when it comes to our workforce individuals, first of all, we need to give those individuals, maybe tax credits or whatnot, like our first responders. I drive to Somerville every day to work, and I see too many of our Mount Pleasant police officers driving to Somerville and North Charleston. Those individuals can't afford this area. So, we need to do what we can to give them, whether it be a tax credit or some type of credit. And again, maybe that's something that we need to work with our legislative body at the state level to help get that implemented as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Gary Davis.
So,
Workforce
as a member of the
housing.
Planning Commission, workforce housing has come up a couple of times, and I think it was at least 2, maybe 3 occasions, and we all voted for it. It was unanimous that we would approve this workforce housing. And so the Planning Commission, of course, is all for workforce housing. But I think, and I hate to keep going back to this 36 acres and, off the Faison Road area, but that would have been a perfect place for workforce housing. I mean, there's not a lot of space left in Mount Pleasant. I mean, there's just so much growth going on and so much emphasis on the economic development. I think more emphasis ought to be placed toward workforce housing, for people who work in Mount Pleasant but can't afford to live here. I mean, the average price of a home in Mount Pleasant now is probably, I look at the Sunday paper to see the transactions in Mount Pleasant every week in the Sunday paper. The average price on a home right now in Mount Pleasant is about $1 million. Workforce housing is like 275, 350, a little under $400,000. And I just think that, we need to find areas where we can do that. And I think that the town needs to provide more workspace housing areas for that, and forget about making all this money on selling all this land and put it where it would serve the community the best.
Okay, thank you. Brianna Harmon, workforce housing.
Okay, I'm assuming you mean attainable housing, and are we looking at $300,000 to $400,000 price points for these attainable housing units? I mean, I kind of need a little bit more information than just workforce housing.
Well, the general idea that as people have mentioned, it's too expensive to live in Mount Pleasant, and there are people who
I think a lot of
people who work there, but they don't live there.
Right. A lot of people move to Mount Pleasant, including myself, for a more affordable housing actually than where we were. And if you look at each bridge we connect to, every Daniel Island, downtown Charleston, Isle of Palm, Sullivan's Island, Awendaw, all those median home prices are more expensive than Mount Pleasant. So I feel like we have $1 million options, but we also have townhomes that are on the market right now for under 400,000. So, all right, we'll stop there. Thank you.
Okay, Derek Johnson.
Yeah, it's a tough question. I don't think it's one that's easily answered at a town council level. I think that would require coordination with state and even federal agencies to provide incentives, to provide opportunities for growth on a scale that I think it would be necessary. So, but I do think for us, it comes to it kind of in the same theme as for elderly housing and elderly quality of life is making it a choice. And making it, and by what I mean specifically by that is the choice by town council to approve housing that is cottage housing, that is attainable housing, that is even affordable housing, rather than choose developments like neighborhoods that I live in, and I'm guilty of it, but choose to approve developments by builders outside of Mount Pleasant, outside of the Low Country, where they build these big neighborhoods with elevated houses, and they're expensive and they're $1 million. And it's not meeting the needs of the working force, the typical working force that we're talking about here. And the builders are taking the money and leaving.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Garrett Lacey, workforce housing.
Yes, ma'am. Allow me just a moment to kind of educate everyone on workforce housing. In my opinion, Mount Pleasant has done a good job of finding that with what in the parcels we can. Understand that the workforce housing, the qualifications are computed based on the percentage of income on the county median. In saying that, the town certainly needs to try to emphasize and try to promote any development we can within our means. But one thing we do have is Senate Bill 0298, authored by Senator Grooms, which is going to be changing the capital sales tax to allow for workforce housing. Workforce, attainable, affordable, they're all the same to me. One of our largest hurdles we're going to have in the town of Mount Pleasant, because of property value, the real estate value, is going to be coming together as a municipality with other functions of government, as I'll say for the 19th time, and the developer to make it advantageous for everyone. That's where we've got to be as a municipality. That's the only way to move forward. And I believe that's going to be a great part of this redevelopment phase that we're about to go through. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. David Spedden, same question.
Okay, I believe the town just lifted a moratorium on townhomes and apartments. I'm not sure if I read that correctly. We had put that off for a while and that's open again. But I think we need to get creative with the spaces that we have left. We need to look at multi-purpose buildings like along Coleman Boulevard where there's businesses or workspaces on the ground level with condos and apartments up above, and try to look for density of those where the jobs are. So those folks won't need to travel, meaning get in a car, make a long bus ride. They might even be able to walk or bike to get to work. It will take a lot of planning. It's not just on the council's shoulders. We'll have to engage builders that would be willing to do that type of work because it might not be as lucrative as building $1 million homes. But it's needed and necessary for the community so we can balance out having a stable workforce for our small businesses. Thanks.
Thank you. And Bob Swain, same question.
My feeling is housing affordability or the lack of drives infrastructure costs and decision-making, not only for the people involved, but also for the town council. There's just very limited land to the north of it's an urban wall as we get towards Allendale, and we can't go any further. There are some different folks that we can talk to. They call it the Southeastern Affordable Housing Management Association and the Carolinas Council for Affordable Housing. They can help us understand the needs and challenges and maybe help us gather some more information. David talked about the moratorium, and yes, we did reduce the growth of the town by almost 50%. But what did we do? We did a strategic plan. We did one affordable housing program, and it was to in North Mount Pleasant. I can't remember, it's a Gregory Farm or something that sold like hotcakes. But we need to do more. We need to think outside the box, and we need to figure out how we're going to help people who live and work and stay here in Mount Pleasant afford it.
Thank you. And finally, Mike Tinky.
Thank you. As a planning commission member, I voted for affordable housing at Park West, and also I voted to speed up the roundabout at Stockdale to take care of the transportation and make that happen. So I'm in favor of it. I think it's a tri-county issue where we need to work collaboratively with the area, especially in the neck area, which is tied to public transportation, which would tie to transportation coming into Mount Pleasant. I also think it's housing type. Cottage court housing with a green space in between is perfect for entry level or lower income individuals, as well as retired. And this would need a lot of help on town council to get passed right now because it's somewhat stuck. The other area is in the redevelopment areas, such as Mount Pleasant Town Center and Patriots Annex. As a planning commission member, I've voted to make sure that for four marketplace houses, there'll be 4 affordable. So I would also do it in where the live, work, and play areas are, and do it in those areas. So I think we can do some things with zoning, housing type, and the areas that they're built in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Are there any rebuttals for this question? Okay. All right. Well, I think we're ready to move on to closing statements, just so we don't lose everyone's attention by going too long. So we're going to do closing statements in reverse alphabetical order. So we will start with Mike Van Horn, and you have 60 seconds for a closing statement.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody that's been on the call here this evening. And, first of all, I want to wish all the candidates best of luck, as we go through this March 25th election. It takes a lot for us to put ourselves out there into the public, and until you've actually done it. This is my second time I've done that. I ran for county treasurer as well. So, the opportunity is for us to put the right person in place. Come time November, we're going to have an opportunity for 4 council seats and also a mayor's seat. So as a community, we need to sit there and maintain, staying, together, moving Mount Pleasant forward. And as I said before, all neighborhoods matter. You can count on me as the individual that's going to be there. I'm truthful, I'm reliable, and also, I'm disciplined. I'm going to make sure that we're conservative with what we do on council. And at the end of the day, if you need anything, you can reach out to me on my cell phone, which is 843-870-8697. That's available to everybody 24/7. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike Tinky, closing statement, 60 seconds.
I'm running to give back to our community, which has given so much to our family over many years. I'm running to be part of a team to continue to build consensus with civility to shape and implement the comprehensive plan. On town council, I pledge to lead by listening, finding common ground, building trust, and my nonpartisan commitment to ensuring citizens are heard will guide my decision-making in a collaborative spirit. That's what I've done on Mount Pleasant's town council. That's what I've done as a citizen and on the planning commission for many years. I support Mount Pleasant's mission to deliver performance in a manner that is distinctive and impactful to each person served, that establishes a standard for quality that ensures for generations. I'm Mike Tinking. I'm asking for your vote March 25th, and together we can shape a stronger, greener, and more connected Mount Pleasant. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Swain, closing statement, 60 seconds.
South Carolina grows by approximately 90,000 new citizens every year. That's like building a new Mount Pleasant every year in the state of South Carolina. Citizens come here for the same reasons we all do and stay here. It's we have a low tax rate, a conservative form of government, beautiful beaches, marshlands, great history, southern charm, great weather, you name it. We just need a more transparent and open town council that listens to its constituents. Council's in place to represent our needs and services, not the other way around. C.S. Lewis says, you can look at the beginning and see what we had, but you have to look ahead and change where we're going to go. If you want to incite change, we need to be involved, everybody, whether you make it in town council or not. And after listening to everybody's voices tonight, I just am sorry that we only have one seat that we're going for, because this is some great information. And just to make it short, ditto what Mike Van Horn said, that thanks for everything.
Thank you. David Spedden, closing statement, 60 seconds.
Okay. It's good to see the enthusiasm for this one open slot. And it's good to see the quality of the people that are trying to get it. So I wish everyone luck. I like what Mike Van Horn said, and I would ask Jerry, can you make available all of our contact information to the people that have attended? So if they have questions or follow up, they would be able to get a hold of any candidate and talk further with them. I think we'd all appreciate that opportunity for one-on-one discussions. The other thing is I'm in agreement with why we live in Mount Pleasant. The charm, the character, it feels good. You know your neighbor, everybody says hi, and we have to find ways to be able to maintain that and keep that going. Lastly, I'm going to end with a question that I started with, was what can I do to make you and the town of Mount Pleasant more successful? Again, it'll go back to listening to understand, not to respond, to understand what people are really struggling with and how I can help them and bring that to the town council. Thank you.
Thank you. Garrett Lacey, closing statement, 60 seconds.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Again, I'm going to just restate, I've been listening and serving the town and my neighbors in Mount Pleasant for 2.5 to 3 years now, and I've certainly appreciated the opportunity to do so. That's why I'm asking that you would support me in continuing to help you fill Carl Ritchie's term. Again, I'll reiterate, I've been first to vote in Planning Commission on affordable housing, on attainable housing, on smart growth and development. I am the only Planning Commission member that actually truly voted to save a South Carolina, what could have been a potentially developed South Carolina Department of Natural Resource Conservation easement. I can also tell you, if elected, I will continue to push for transparency, communication, a voice for all, and I can promise everyone this, I will not raise your taxes. Again, thank you all for participating. I love to see everyone's faces here. I wish everyone luck, but I, Garrett Lacey, would be honored to have everyone's vote on March 25th. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Derek Johnson, closing statement, 60 seconds.
Yeah, I'll finish by the way I started, or the same way I started, and thank the League of Women Voters for putting this together, and for everybody taking their time out tonight to listen to us share our opinions about how we see the future of our town. There's no doubt our town is growing. It's inevitable. I think it's irrefutable. But we must ensure that what makes our town special, the charm, our natural beauty, the quality of life here, is not lost in the process of that growth. If elected, I will work to balance the development with preservation. Growth should never come at the cost of our community's character. That means making sure our infrastructure, our roads, traffic management, public services keeps pace with expansion. It means protecting our marshlands, our wetlands, our waterways, ensuring that future generations can use them as we do today. That's why I moved here, was the beauty. And I don't want to lose that for my children. Lastly, good governance is about more than policies. It's about trust. The residents of the residents deserve a town council that will listen, communicate, and operates with transparency. I will work to increase that in public participation, limit closed door meetings, and ensure responsible spending that prioritizes our needs as residents. My name is Derek Johnson. Thank you for your time. Vote for DerekJohnson.com, and let's keep Mount P pleasant together. Thank you.
Thank you. Brianna Harmon, closing statement, 60 seconds.
Thank you. And thank you for hosting. I really appreciate this opportunity to get in front of the residents that I hope to serve on town council. I would like to close with a few things I didn't mention in the beginning. Some of my skills, I guess I would say, and abilities that would make me a great candidate for this position. I have a background in a degree in psychology from The Ohio State University. I also have a master's in forensic science. I have a background in professional criminal investigations, as well as many, many years in technology sales. I also have a real estate license in South Carolina, inactive currently, but I just wanted to say that my goal for Mount Pleasant is just to maintain our charm, our quality of life, and anyone that fills that seat, I hope they have that same intent. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Davis, closing statement, 60 seconds.
I think my greatest strength is my strong executive background and experience. I'm a problem solver. Having worked for myself almost all of my entire life and built 3 successful businesses, I knew how to listen to people. I knew how to solve problems. And I'm a problem solver. I mean, we have problems every day at work, and I'm just a problem solver, and I listen to people. I have a degree in accounting from Temple University School of Business and Public Administration. I've been on a planning commission now since 2019, as I said before. There's only one member on the planning commission that's been on that commission longer than me. I think that the town council just needs to be more transparent. I think that less decisions have to be made in what I call the back room. And I just think that my experience, my financial background, when I was in Pittsburgh, I was vice chairman of the school authority where we did all the public financing, and so I'm probably the only candidate that has experience in tax-free bond financing and things like that. And it's my strong executive background and experience that I think sets me aside from almost everybody else.
Okay, thank you. Mike Tinky, you have your hand raised. Was that from a while ago?
Yes, can
Okay.
you ask if we could rebut the statements that have made earlier?
Yes.
Okay. Garrett Lacey on 2 occasions mentioned he was the only person to vote no for the Patriots Point Annex. And although technically correct, when it came before the Mount Pleasant Planning Commission, the entire commission voted unanimously a long list of questions that had to be addressed and really demands to be made. One of them was to protect and the green space, the DNR green space. So we voted unanimously to do it, because had we voted just no, that vote would have gone to the town council with no narrative to tell them what the debate was about and what we thought was important to be incorporated in the Patriots Point plan that was before us, not the Patriots Point Annex, the Patriots Point plan that was in front of us. So it really was misleading to say that all the rest of us were for the Patriots Point plan. We were not. We listed a whole things that could be done, because otherwise voting no, it would have just gone to them as no, with no conditions.
Okay, thank you. You need to unmute yourself, Mr. Lacey. Nope, you're still muted. Still muted.
Now you've got me. Now you've got me.
There we go.
If I may, I'll make it very brief. To respond to Mr. Tinky's comment, understand that the Planning Commission is an advisory body to the town of Mount Pleasant. Based on the rules of procedure, our Planning Commission meeting was held after the first reading of the ordinance of the council. With that being said, they'd adopted the ordinance for discussion without hearing what our essentially our recommendation would be. And I can sit on this and go back and forth, but I would simply disagree with him on that. Commission did give a long list of items that they'd like to have seen, but when it comes down to the end of it, the town of Mount Pleasant cannot ever think that they can get into a land trading agreement with any state entity. It's opening up Pandora's box, and I'd be happy to answer any questions further. But once again, thank all of you for your participation, and thank you for hosting us this evening.
Sure. Okay. So what I wanted to mention, because you mentioned you're getting your personal contact info out. The best way for you candidates to utilize the League of Women Voters platform to get your message out is to answer our questions on vote411.org. You should have received questions to respond to, and that's what voters go to when they're looking for candidate information from the League of Women Voters. So whatever you want to say on that platform is probably the best way for you to get your message out there, in addition to participating in this forum, which we very much appreciate your participation. Thank you to the audience. I'd like to do a shout out for vote411.org to the audience as well. If you want to learn more about these candidates or the two that unfortunately couldn't join us tonight. These are 8 of the 10 candidates who are running for this seat. We encourage you to study the issues carefully, learn about the positions of each candidate, and vote for the candidate of your choice on March 25th or earlier. Early voting will be available Monday to Friday from March 10th to the 21st at the Charleston County Board of Elections office in North Charleston. I urge voters again to check candidate answers on the League's vote411.org website. Many thanks to our town council candidates tonight. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters volunteers who helped me and mostly Jerry, who put this together. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. Thank you, Heidi. Well done.
Thank you, Heidi, for moderating.
Thank you both. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you all for
Yeah.
participating.
Coming prepared. Yes.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Good night.